Okay, welcome to another episode of FLAVR Q&A. Today I'm going to be looking at the Hasselblad H1, and the Hasselblad H1 is a medium format camera system built in conjunction with Hasselblad and Fuji, and it's one of the few cameras that you can use in medium format to shoot both film and digital. So this particular example is a Phase 1 P21 Plus, and it uses a 44 by 33mm sensor, which is smaller. You can see that it's actually smaller in size to the 645, and it has about a 1.3 to 1 crop ratio. And compared to 35mm, I think it's a 0.78 ratio, so it's larger, obviously. I'm going to be dealing with this one today. This is a film cassette which goes onto the back of this camera. So it clicks in like so, and then there's a release button here that you can use to release a cassette. It has an integrated dark slide, which is this silver thing, which is just awesome because it means, well, I can't do it while it's not on the thing, but it means that you don't have to have slides that move in and out and you end up losing them or worse. It has an integrated cassette unit that comes out, so you can keep this on the back of the unit, and then you have this interchangeable cassette. So your roll fits in at the top, sorry, at the bottom. Correction. It fits in there, rolls across the top, goes into your spare roll, and then literally you just put it back into the unit and it will automatically wind on, which is sweet. Now, again, one of the reasons I like this camera is because you can switch between film and digital, and it's one of the very few systems that is actually available that allows you to do that. The digital stuff from Phase 1 is amazing, and it's all 16-bit, which means that the color, the tonal range is on par with film, especially once you scan it. Or if you're scanning it in a 16-bit environment, then you're going to have two products or two mediums that are going to work in a much more comparable fashion. I guess that's probably the easiest way to describe it. This system uses leaf shutter lenses, and these leaf shutter lenses will sync at all speeds to flash, which is great. You can block out the sun, and the flash speed on this is actually great because it goes to 800, whereas say something like a Hasselblad's CM500 is a 500 maximum shutter speed. So you've got 800 shutter speed. There are more. This model is old. I think it's at least 15 years old. The new models that are available from both Hasselblad and what was Mamiya is now sort of been merged into Phase 1 as a proprietary product. The Phase 1 stuff exceeds 800. They have a range that you can choose between leaf shutter and focal plane shutter product with them. The Hasselblads are pretty much the same. So, but I've seen the price of these cassettes, these film cassettes, have gone astronomical, which is interesting because what happened was that so Hasselblad had the H1, which is this camera, and then they went to the H2, which was like an evolution of the H1, still the same layout, format, it's all modular, so forth and so on. Then they brought out the H3D, and the H3D was a completely insulated product, so it could only use the Hasselblad digital backs, not third-party digital backs like the H1 and H2 could. And that kind of polarized the community in that product, people who use that product extensively. And then Hasselblad re-released I think they brought out the H4X or H5X, which will allow you to use not only phase 1 backs that are designed for the H mount, but also they brought back film backs, so you could use your film back on the cameras. So once that happened, then the demand for these film backs sort of went exponential. Another reason that I like using this system, especially with the work that I do in terms of making comparisons between, say, film and digital, is that you're using the same lens. And you're probably thinking, well, why is that important? Well, the lens has probably more impact on everything. So if you're doing a comparison between, and you can do this in digital, in 35mm as well. So for instance, you could use, and in the book we actually used a Nikon F5 and a D800 to do the digital and film, and we didn't put any of the digital images into the book, but we use it as a comparison, or basically as a digital Polaroid, I guess, in that respect. So being able to use the same body, same lens, and interchange between digital and film gives you a hell of a lot more. It gives you more variety, because realistically, a digital back, okay, so a digital back is it's its own entity, right? So it is. It has its own characteristic. This is a CCD, not a CMOS sensor, so it has that kind of characteristic as well, and depending on how it's made and how many megapixels and all the rest of it, it's going to have its own signature. I think that's probably the easiest way to describe it. So, and every single roll of film is its own signature. So effectively what this camera does is that if you're using it extensively as a digital camera with the digital back, then you have one signature type, right? So you can't really modify that moving forward. You can do your post-production, but extensively the images are always going to be shaped by the sensor that's behind the lens. So with a roll of film, every film is a new sensor in that respect. So the ability to have, say, a dozen different types of color film available in 120 gives you a far greater range of options in terms of tailoring your color or your image in the direction in which you plan on shooting. So if you're doing, like architecture or landscape or design work or objects, then you can tailor your film stock to shoot that purpose. Whereas digital is sort of, it's a one-stop solution. You can tailor the image in terms of how you use the light, in terms of how you expose, in terms of how you do your post-production, but the ability of the film to do that for you, and with a modern camera system, well, I call this modern, it still has the ability to get a great result on film, and then you have, so many more different options available with the film. And then when you go to black and white, it's even greater. So, and you get different looks. But more importantly is that this system shares the same lens. So you can make really, really, really interesting comparisons between the performance of a roll of film and the performance of this back. And this back is so old that, it only goes from 100 to 800 ISO, which is actually perfect for this sort of film activity because most films only go from 100 to 800 ISO. So it really lends itself as a package, in that respect. I'll probably talk about it later, but I think that's enough for now. I guess the key takeaways from that is that if you're looking to make comparisons between digital and film, you have to use the same lens. That's a given, because otherwise it's an unfair advantage depending on how you're doing it. And really, there's only a few camera systems that will give you that benefit of being able to swap that will allow you to swap between the lens, between digital, to have the lens mount the same, but have different bodies in digital and film to be able to allow you to hot swap between one body and another. So yeah, it's an exciting tidbit for today. I'm going to continue with the Fuji Pro 400H project, the mini ebook project, and I'll be running it through this camera because I can get 16 frames instead of 10 frames from the Mamiya RZ. I'm going to talk about why I use the Mamiya in another episode and go through one of the reasons that I actually do like that camera and why I use it for the color checker passport images. All right, that's definitely gone way over time. All right, so if you've got any questions, let me know, and I'll catch you in another episode. Take care.